Welcome back, gang. It's Deltia from Deltiasgaming.com, and I've been playing Enshrouded for the last 2 weeks during early access. This game blends the best of RPG elements, crafting, survival, and exploration to one really massive open world experience. You can play Enshrouded solo or up to 16 players cooperatively. The game is complex, incredibly fun, and a perfect game to try out early in 2024. In this guide, I'm going to share with you what I've learned over those 2 weeks in case you're interested in joining early access on January 24th. This game is sponsored by Ken Games, and if you would like to purchase Shroud to join the early access, click the link in the description below. Now, let's do a complete beginner's guide of everything you need to know for Enshrouded, launching January 24th on Steam. The first thing you're going to do in Enshrouded is create a character. When you start the game for the first time, just like other role-playing games, you're going to have a series of customization options like presets, hair, beard, and voice. These selections are purely based on cosmetics and do not affect gameplay, so simply set the look that you want. You can also have multiple characters, so feel free to experiment. Next up, you're going to need to select a game. Now, if you're unfamiliar with survival games, it's a little bit different than maybe playing other single-player or multiplayer games. After you create your new character, you're going to have 3 options: private, host, or join game. Private is for those players that are looking for a solo experience that don't want anyone else to join, that's saved locally on your PC. Folks interested in multiplayer can host a game, which is using their own PC internet connection in a non-dedicated server. You can set a password to prevent other users from joining, but you don't have a whole lot of options here. Lastly, you can join a multiplayer game, which joins another player's game. Within the menu, Enshrouded references the website gportal.com to rent your own server. This will be an option for folks looking to host a game with optimal performance because Enshrouded is 16-player co-op, but that's an extra expense added to the game. So the general overview of Enshrouded is this. The story is set in the world of Embervale, where you are a survivor of a fog set to wipe out the world. Your goal is to reclaim the Lost Kingdom by adventuring, crafting, and conquering enemies who look to destroy you. It's kind of complex of what to do and what your priority is. So, if you don't know, here's what I would recommend as the core gameplay mechanics and what your kind of outset goal is. You're going to establish a base. This is going to be used to create a flame altar, and you can have multiple bases spread out. You want to gather a bunch of resources. So this is going to be used to craft based items, weapons, armor, and more. You're going to eliminate the Shroud, which is deadly fog that prevents exploration. You're going to unlock survivors. These are helpful additions to your base that are NPC fellow survivors with their entire crafting trees. Then you're going to level up your base. Leveling up the Flame Altar advances your base, which helps with exploration, progression in shrouded areas. You're going to complete quests. Specifically, there are main quests, side quests, and NPC related quests that progress the main story, look for new survivors, unlock areas, and more. And then you're going to explore the map, discover ancient obelisks, flame altars, ancient spires, and so on. The map is absolutely massive. During early access, I was basically able to explore half of it, which I've already spent 30 hours playing and barely scratched the surface. So there's a lot to explore currently in early access. All right, so step 1 is establishing a home base. After the introduction quest, you come out of your survival pod and really have freedom to explore and do whatever you want. Your initial goal is to establish a flame altar using 5 stones. This serves as your home base, allowing protection from the Shroud, which is the deadly fog I'll explain a little bit later, along with a 40 by 40 by 40 area to build, which you can expand through a progression system within the flame altar. Your base and flame altar is an important part of crafting, but also progression, story, and overall character development. Here's what you can expect to do at your base. Number 1, you can cook, so you can turn raw food into useful buffs. You can repair weapons, keeps materials functioning, and doesn't have a resource cost when you repair. You simply just click a bench. Storage, so you can store items for crafting on later use because those will start to add up. You can use production, so combining materials and production furniture, which will advance materials. And you can create armor, weapons, or production items to manufacture raw materials, and you can upgrade weapons and improve weapons using runes. Additionally, the flame altar here is where you can respec or reset your skills very cheap and experiment with skill trees and builds, which you guessed it, I will cover later. So important mechanics here in the note. Upgrading the flame altar. To upgrade your flame altar, collect materials and either upgrade or strengthen. Those are two separate gameplay mechanics. Upgrade simply increases the range, allowing you to build instead of a 40 by 40 by 40 to an 80 by 80 by 80. This is helpful for crafters who enjoy building, but also extends its range and also shroud protection. Strengthening a flame, however, allows you to increase your time in the shroud, obtain more character attribute bonuses, and craft more flame altars, which act as fast travel points and forward operating bases. Strengthening your flame is the #1 priority because it does so much from increasing your character's power, helping in exploration, and giving you more fast travel points. This is your #1 priority from the outset of the game. Speaking of fast travel, let's explain how this works. So fast travel is limited and enshrouded to your home base, Ancient Spires. The easiest way to create your fast travel points is by strengthening your flame to place more active altars. You can carry these flame altars with you in your inventory and set them throughout the open world. Limitations could include nearby enemies, flat surfaces, or enough space to expand. Ancient Spires are large tower structures that require you to reach the top and commune with the flame. These give a unique advantage because of their height. Enshrouded features a glider, which allows for fast travel through the air that consumes stamina per second while gliding. So reaching spires and gliding allows for fast travel through the open world versus walking. As of right now, I don't think there are any mounts in the game, so you're going to be walking fast traveling frequently. I've talked a lot about the Shroud. Let's explain this as the basic and premise of the game called Enshrouded. The Shroud is essentially a hostile area that your character will only have limited time while exploring. This will appear at the top of your bar while you are inside of the Shroud area with the timer that counts down. There are a couple types of Shroud, blue and red fog. You can extend the time through the Shroud with skills, gear, potions, and/or strengthening your flame altar. You can also build a flame altar near the edge, which gives protection via the flame altar. The top toolbar with the timer is the most important mechanic when dealing with the Shroud. Your time will move like an hourglass, and when you reach 0, you will die. Within certain Shroud areas, you can find beacons that extend the time. Additionally, certain materials used for crafting are specific to shrouded areas and/or monsters, so you will be spending frequent time within the shrouded areas. Speaking of enshrouded areas, you're going to be looking for something specific called elixir wells. These are scattered throughout the world. They're fell roots, big, red, and they are noticeable. And you can destroy them with an axe or other weapons, and you gain a skill point when you kill it for the first time. So once destroyed, this will temporarily be rid of the shrouded area. So this is a great way to refresh your shroud time or eliminate it from the area, but also obtain skill points for character advancement, earn valuable experience, and more. Just look for the distinct reddish glow within the shrouded for clues, and also these will be marked on your maps as elixir well purple. I talked about shrouded versions, so one thing to know that I found out the hard way is there are blue and/or red versions of the shroud. So you will encounter multiple versions and power levels of the shroud during your exploration. This ties back into your flame altar level. This is going to limit your progression, which not by a lot, but incentivizes you to go back and upgrade that flame altar to continue to explore new areas. So the blue, safe to explore with the timer. The red, the timer moves extraordinarily fast and you'll die within a couple of seconds of stepping in the area. Do not find out this the hard way, death is punishing. Next up, let's talk about gathering resources. So this is kind of typical mechanics based on survival games. So if you play survival games, you'll be familiar with this. If not, you won't be. You can gather more resources via using axes, mining, harvesting, and killing enemies. The environment you explore determines the items you will find and collect. Specifically, the Shroud contains Shroud-specific crafting materials requiring you to loot, harvest, and kill enemies within that area. Scavengers are enemy NPCs that will require you to destroy and collect metal scraps. While plants can be harvested, wood can be chopped down from trees, and mineral can be mined. The thing that sticks out with Enshrouded is the entire world is malleable. You can literally mine through a mountain if you want to reach a new area, though it might take you a long time. You can mine in the ground, you can chop basically anything down, you can deconstruct anything, you can throw explosives and just basically change the environment around you. So while you're exploring, it's advised to craft, gather material, and bring it back to your base frequently so you can progress your base and/or upgrade materials. Resources like wood logs, string, metal scrap, stone are used for basic building and crafting. And you really can't avoid crafting. So this is a core mechanic of the game. You don't have to focus your entire gameplay loop on it, but you could. There is an enormous amount of building material, building blocks. So if you like games similar to Minecraft, this could be your entire play loop, almost entirely avoiding combat. Or if you like combat, exploring RPG mechanics like me, you can do it a little bit and get by. You really have the freedom to kind of enjoy different aspects of a game that you find most enjoyable, but you do have to do some crafting, you do have to do some collecting, so you should familiarize yourself with it. One thing you're going to have to familiarize yourself with is fast travel, like I talked about earlier, and filling up your inventory. So one of the tips I can give you that I learned quickly is to carry flame altars with you in your inventory. What you're going to do is go out and explore. You're going to gather new materials, you're going to mine, craft, kill critters, gather their stuff, and your bags are going to be full really quick. What you're going to want to do is set a flame altar at your furthest travel point so you can quickly go back there. Then you return to home base, deposit all your stuff, go back to the flame altar, actually extinguish the flame because you will be limited in the amount that you can put down. Go travel a bit further, set another flame altar at the furthest point, rinse and repeat. So you'll always have a forward operating base at the furthest traveled point, keeping you constantly fast traveling and exploring new areas versus back traveling and have to do it all over again. So when you return to the base, make sure you stock up on those flame altars. They're very cheap resource-wise and handy to keep in your bags. Gathering tools are also similar to other survival games. These tools can be upgraded to enhanced versions that essentially speed up production and organic. During the introduction, you're going to require a basic pickaxe and axe used for mining and wood. Wood logs and stones kind of serve as the foundation for crafting and building expansion. However, as you progress, you will collect, find, and obtain rare crafting materials using the same tools, but creating more exotic materials. Just keep in mind, the environment that you are exploring determines what resources you are finding. So the further you advance, the more exotic materials you will find. Next up is inventory and action bar. So your inventory in Enshrouded starts off with 24 spaces without weight restrictions. This means that a massive shield takes up the same space as a flower. You can upgrade your backpack through crafting and questing and expand these slots. Most materials are stacked with exceptions to weapons, armor, and non-consumable items. Different items have different caps on stacks, meaning strawberries can only hold 20 per stack, while stones can be over 300. Your inventory is also going to include 2 action bars with 8 individual slots. Ideally, you want to place 1 bar full of weapons and consumables for healing on your front bar. Your second bar keep for long-term buff, resource gathering, and miscellaneous items. If your inventory fills up, you can stack random pieces of gear and materials here on a secondary bar just as an extra layer of storage. The 10 essential items to bring with you before leaving your base that are critical to help you in exploration are follows. 1, you're going to need a lockpick to open chests. 2, you're going to need a torch, which is a long-lasting light source in the darkness. 3, you're going to need water found at wells. These are endurance and stamina regeneration buffs for 10 minutes. Blueberries or strawberries, which are health regeneration. Healing potions, which are instant burst heal. Flame altars used for setting up new forward bases. Pickaxes for mining. Axes for chopping down trees. A melee weapon and a shield, either a sword or a wand with a shield for blocking. And range weapon, either a bow, wand, or staff for range damage. Now let's talk about storage briefly while we're on the subject of inventory. You can build an additional storage chest within your flame altar base, and these are critical for an ever-expanding list of ingredients that you will be chugging through constantly. The 2 basic forms of storage are magical and non-magical chests. You can attain magic chests through unlocking another survivor, Carpenter, discussed later in this guide. When crafting in your base, the game will not register which items are in your chest. Thus, you must go to many chests with various materials, put them in your inventory while going back to the crafting stations. However, magic chests register what are inside while crafting the station, making it much easier to consistently craft materials without forgetting an item. You can also pin the required crafting needs on the top right of your UI, which is helpful to keep you knowing what exactly materials you need to grab out of those chests. So these magical chests are highly advised as you progress in the game. They require a lot more material and investment than just a normal chest, but it just makes life easier for a never-ending supply of materials that grows. And crafting in Enshrouded is kind of a complex thing with an enormous amount of materials. So you're going to have workstations, materials, and inventory space all to balance. Initially, you're going to start out with very little crafting options, but expand this list via craftspeople, workshops, and recipe unlocks. You will also unlock production and/or factories. These are items that combine 2 or more materials to make more complex materials used for better versions of items. So this could be fur for armor, metal in a forge like metal sheets, and so on. You can also unlock new recipe through craftspeople, gathering new resources, and key items found in the open world. With the craftspeople UI, you will notice a diamond-shaped item. Sometimes if you craft these items, you will unlock new recipes. Even if you don't want the item, it's worth crafting them at least one time. Moreover, if you're in a different environment, loot and harvest everything. This will reward you with many new recipes and materials. Talked a lot about craftspeople. Here's where they are currently in the game. And during the main story, you're going to be introduced to these, and one specifically pretty early in the game called the blacksmith. There are 5 current craftspeople that we have been introduced to. The blacksmith crafts, upgrades armor and weapons. The alchemist creates potions, brews, also creates armor for spellcasters. The hunter crafts survival gear for dexterity bow builds, arrows, and more. The carpenter makes anything from wood, and the farmer creates food and grows plants. Each of these NPCs are spread out and are found through ancient vaults, which is a little bit of combat, a little bit of puzzles. Once located, freed from their vault, you can summon them at your base with a summoning staff. And once they are rescued, placed in your base, they will unlock a wide range of new special crafting equipment. The alchemist is helpful for consumables, blacksmith is great for upgrading weapons, and the hunter is critical for ranged bow users. These should be your priority unlocks immediately when starting the game. Workshops. So these individual folks that you unlock also give you workshops or production material. Take for instance the charcoal production. It's created from the blacksmith, and once you unlock and place it, you can produce advanced materials. Charcoal, tar, and wood acid. Charcoal, for instance, requires wood logs and dirt combined to generate 15 charcoal per every 5 minutes. The goal should be to unlock these craft people, create their production equipment if possible. Some will be located throughout the world with complex quest chains requiring completion. So expect a mix of progression within these individual NPC crafters to unlock their full potential. Check your quest log. If you get confused and you don't feel like everything is unlocked, there should be a quest inside there requiring progression. Next up is exploration, and there is a massive amount to explore. It is truly staggering, and one of the best parts, if not the best part of the game, Enshrouded, is just organic exploration. I can't tell you how fun it is. The entire game basically focuses on exploration with basically near limitless freedom. The only real progression block is either shrouded areas, early access barriers, or tools like grapples that you are required to craft first. Otherwise, you're free to go anywhere whenever you want from the outset of the game. But be warned, enemies will not scale with your level. Therefore, the further you travel, the more dangerous and difficult enemies you will find. So here's a list of the most important areas and things to explore and discover in Enshrouded currently. Flame Sanctums. These are small caves containing sparks used to strengthen the flame. Flame Shrines contain sparks as well, used to strengthen the flame. Elixir Wells. These grant skill points upon one-time destruction and temporarily remove Shroud. Ancient Vaults, talked about those. Those are containing fellow survivor and craft people. Ancient Obelisk, these are lore items that essentially unlock map icons where flame shrines and elixir wells will be. Ancient Spires, these are massive high towers which require puzzle completion but unlock fast travel. Early on, your progression is going to be blocked because you will not have a grappling hook and be required to craft this. This can be crafted at the workbench combining metal scraps, string, and shroud spores. Metal scraps come from scavengers at camps via kills or loot in the area. Shroud spores can be found within shrouded areas. String is made through plant fiber, which is obtained through harvesting bushes and plants. Once you've made your grappling hook, it'll allow you to hit the E key on PC when you see this specific icon. This consumes stamina but allows you to thrust forward and required for various puzzles and travel. Your grappling hook can eventually be upgraded as well, allowing you to travel further. For a beginner, look to craft the Grappling Hook right away to pass the early bridge part of the main story and get access to a huge new area to explore. The second tool that you're going to be using in exploration is called the glider. The glider allows for airborne travel at the expense of stamina. When you jump in the air, you can hit the space bar again to start gliding. This will cause you to move forward at a rapid pace, but also allow airborne travel for 15, 30 seconds, 45 seconds, depending on your stamina resource. You can also take skills to aid in your glider and even get updraft and or wield the bow while gliding. To craft a glider, you will need shrouded wood, 2 animal fur, 2 string, and 2 shrouded spores. Shrouded wood, shrouded spores contain enshrouded areas, so just gather, harvest everything in those areas. Animal fur, just kill wolves or animals around your base in the overland, and string, talked about that, convert plant fiber to string. Most of the materials are found near Long Keep. There's a shrouded area and you can find almost everything straight away in the game. And there's also a well to refill your water and get a useful buff consumable as well in Long Keep. One thing to note that I highly recommend investing in skill point wise, the best exploration skill is double jump. This is in the green survivor tree early on and allows for, well, you guessed it, a double jump. This is essential for some combat fights, but also for exploration. You're going to be constantly traveling, trying to get around mountains and jump over caves and all sorts of things. This will make the game a lot more fun during exploration. I highly recommend it for each and every build if you can spare the skill points. So let's talk about combat a bit. There is a lot to explain in terms of combat and build, so I'm going to briefly touch on the systems and mechanics. The combat system in Enshrouded is like other RPGs, so you have a holy trinity setup of skills and builds, tanks, healers, and DPS. Remember, this game is designed for multiplayer, so you have some roles and some group buffs and mechanics. You have 3 separate color-coded skill areas, each with 4 skill lines that emphasize various playstyles and archetypes. Red for tanks or melee weapon damage builds, green for bow-wielding range builds, and lastly blue for mana or spirit builds, emphasizing on elemental damage or healers. You have a center area that I call the core that is not specific to any attribute. The 4 fundamental mechanics in Shroud and combat are attacking, dodging, blocking, and healing. Attacking. So you can use one active weapon at a time, melee or range, and you are free to swap bars instantly with limited delay and can use a variety of weapons, instantly swapping with the click of a button. Therefore, it's best to set up one skill bar with range, melee, and a variety of weapons, including throwable bombs. Melee weapons users can use axes, swords, mauls, maces, etc. These can be one-handed or two-handed, combined with the shield for protection. Spellcasters, on the other hand, are a little bit more complex, requiring a staff or a wand. Staffs require charges, which are limited one-time use consumables similar to arrows for bow users. They give elemental damage like fireball or healing. They do massive damage but require constant crafting, can be difficult to find and maintain, but do the most damage. They also do have a long wind up and charge, but are highly recommended for burst damage and people that love ranged spellcasters. However, the wand is helpful because it's range damage, it can be paired well with the shield, and doesn't require crafting materials. Tanks can use a combination of shields with wands, so a battle mage build, or a one-handed weapon like a traditional tank with a sword. Bow range users are a similar situation to spellcasters. You can craft a wide variety of arrows, from basic arrows to poison, stun, explosive, and so on. During my playtesting, the wand seemed to be the strongest overall weapon, independent of your class and build. We suggest using one straight away when you find it until you follow our specific build page guides, which will be covered on my website, Deltiasgaming.com. Dodging. When you dodge, you consume stamina by gaining a distance towards or away from an enemy, very similar to other RPGs or survival games. There are skills that increase dexterity and regeneration, which helps allowing you to dodge more frequently. The consequences of running out of stamina are actually dreadful. You become stunned and incapacitated for a couple seconds, resulting in massive incoming damage during a fight or possibly death. The healer skill tree contains the skill Blink and Blink Attack. This skill changes your dodge into a teleport, which can do damage to enemies. This is a really interesting mechanic and useful for any build wanting to use mana while doing a bit of damage. Blocking. In Enshrouded, you can block with either stamina or mana, which is magic. Stamina-based weapons like shield consume stamina. Meanwhile, you can craft elemental shields, which consume mana while blocking. This is helpful for tanks who want to roll dodge and avoid attacks using their stamina pool, but also their mana for blocking, so you can piggyback on the two resource pools. The two skill lines for tanks are Battle Mage and Tank, and combine this blends the perfect for a magical tank build. Up next is healing. When it comes to healing in Enshrouded, you want to combine a healing potion with heals over time. Consumables like Bandage and Strawberry add heal over time, which slowly regenerate health, while the Burst Heal via Health Potion gives a flood of health instantly and nothing over time. You can front load heal over time prior to combat to keep your health high while taking damage. The advantage of health potions is they are consumed instantly without an animation. Berries and/or bandages have a small animation window, which makes your character vulnerable to attacks while eating. Thus, it's recommended to either front load this or run away to eat and/or prepare to avoid damage. Consumables are up next. Something like meat can be eaten and increase your constitution and overall health pool, giving you a long-lasting buff for 30 minutes. At the start of the game, you're going to have 3 active consumable slots, which can be expanded with a skill point. We recommend 1 slot for constitution buff, like Grilled Game, and water or heal over time prior to fighting. This gives you a better chance at survival until you play more, become familiar with the combat, and then can use offensive and aggressive consumables to boost strength, dexterity, spirit, and/or damage. Couple mechanics that are interesting. The game doesn't have ultimates per se, but they have Overpowered and Merciless attack. The Overpowered mechanic is a way to stun or make your enemies vulnerable. You can do these one of 2 ways: by timing incoming attacks with parry or block, or you can attack enemies while blocking and filling up their gray bar just below their health bar. Once the bar becomes full, the enemy will be drained of stamina and they have a circle halo around their head for a couple of seconds. This allows you to do an Overpowered attack or Merciless attack. A Merciless attack specifically is in the core, skill tree, center, and your skill window. It's a mechanic that requires you to fill up the stun bar, making them vulnerable for an Overpowered attack. You must take the skill, and then this will do 400 times more damage in your base attack. In its current form, it's incredibly powerful, high damage, and reliable in a 1v1 encounter. However, in AoE encounters with multiple enemies, it does leave you vulnerable during the animation window and is hard to pull off. Next up is Death. When you die in Enshrouded, you lose most of your collected materials, and it is quite annoying. You can either respawn at beacons that you find or at your home base. Then you have a chance to go retrieve your corpse along with the materials on your body for a limited time. I recommend making frequent trips back to home base to resupply with healing potions, water, bandages, and deposit your materials. Don't forget to take flame altars and place them next to the furthest travel point and where you expect more difficult enemies. So if you're in a situation where you suspect a death coming, put a flame altar down. This will prevent a 10-15 minute travel window going back to your corpse looking for those metal scraps. Upgrading weapons can be done using runestones via the blacksmith NPC. Runestones can be found in shrouded areas along with salvaging weapons. So salvaging is like deconstructing, destroying a weapon and retaining some of its runestones. Weapon quality determines the number of items it can be enhanced or upgraded. So the quality of enshrouded weapons are common, which are whites, green are uncommon and can be upgraded twice, blue are rare, can be upgraded 3 times, purple is epic, upgraded 4, and yellow are legendary items, upgraded 5 times. Not all the weapon traits are known, but some that are the best to focus on are critical chance and critical damage. This will give you the most burst and consistent burst, and you want to focus on it if you can. Armor is up next, and it can be obtained through crafting or finding in the open world through chests or enemies, and each craft person creates armor tailored to specific builds and playstyles. Blacksmith for fighters, armor intended for melee weapons and tanks. Alchemist creates healer and mage armor intended for spellcaster, and the hunter creates range, marksman, and scout armor for dexterity bow users. Let's talk about builds. So builds are fully customizable set of gear, skills, and armor choices. In Enshrouded, you aren't locked in specific classes or skill trees or roles. You're free to mix and match, but for optimal power, you should have a direction with your skill point selection and weapons, which are the 2 most important factors. You're going to have a lot of other factors like stats, so primary, secondary, resistance, and combat. You're going to have skill point selection, which I'm going to go over here briefly. gear, which we've talked about earlier, but you got head, chest, gloves, boots, legs, jewelry, ranged weapon, and shield. Consumables, which are going to boost your stat, healing, and damage. The most important aspects, like I said, are skills and weapons. So let's explain skills up next. When you open up the skill tree, it seems extraordinarily complex, and yeah, it kind of is. There are going to be categories of skills broken down into color sections. So red is going to be strength-based weapons in melee build. Green is going to be dexterity bow users and range damage. Blue is going to be intelligence, spellcaster healer builds. And gold I call core skills unrelated to attributes in the center. You aren't limited and have to pick a bunch of them. You can mix and match and just kind of go wherever you want on the skill tree, but you need to have a direction and some targets on important skills that I found useful to actually make a functioning, high-performing build. Each color of these 4 specific tree lines have something inside of them, a group buff intended for multiplayer. So tanks, for instance, have a 10% damage reduction with earth and aura. Healers can regenerate health based on intelligence with water aura, and range can increase experience by the party for killing fell enemies via bounty bonanza. Additionally, each tree has an orb spawning mechanic meant to restore resources. Blue has life burst, red has blood warrior, and then green has swift shot sustenance. I think I said that right. These skills and more are meant to be coordinated together for both area-based passive boosts alongside healing. Ideally, you want to select a skill line with an emphasis on obtaining an active skill. We will give full build later on my website, Deltiasgaming.com. Yeah, check the website. But for now, let's get you started on some priority and some really powerful skills. For tank builds, players should focus on tank and battle mage skill line. Tanks can reduce damage via the earth and aura ability, 10% within 10 meters. And that same skill tree, Soul Leech, gives 20 mana to each player in 15 meters when you kill an enemy with a melee weapon. And right next to it is Life Burst. It does the same thing but restores health, not magic. This gives the tank an all-in-one setup within 2 skills trees to passively boost everyone in the party, including themselves. For Spellcaster, Wizard is the strongest, ultra-powerful area-based damage and passive skill line. You can mix in Healer for the Blink ability, which replaces Dodge Roll. With one additional skill, you gain damage using Blink. Moreover, the Counter-Strike Trickster skill retaliates against enemies, inflicting damage they hit you for. The Spellcaster combined Radiant Aura, which consistently does damage passively in 10 meters. Thus, you have high mobility, return fire, and AoE damage with the Wizard skill line. For bow builds, use the Ranger skill tree because it is filled with massive damage amplifications. Specifically Skill Shot, which increases head damage by 20% alongside Sharpshooter that increases all range damage by 20%. This is ideal for players who want to use a bow and enjoy shooter games with high skill and aiming. You can also hit tab target if you're unfamiliar or weak at aiming, and this will lock on the target, but primarily avoid headshots. You want to combine this tree with the Survivor skill tree that gives high mobility, double jump, and reduces sprint speed. This will help from draining your stamina and keep your damage high and your survivability high as well. Barbarian two-handed meathead builds that I love to play. They should focus on a double jump AoE damage loadout. You can combine the Athlete skill tree with Survivor for massive jump damage. Double jump and jump attack is going to give you 20% weapon damage boost while double jumping and attacking. Meanwhile, the jump attack passive gives you 50% more damage and AoE radius. This creates a fun, unique, jump-based area damage build with high survivability and AoE. Last thing up is early access and how far you can explore. I'm going to show you this little map here. This is kind of where I was limited. It's a rough estimation. This might not be entirely accurate. So the map is insanely big. I am shocked at how big, how much stuff there is to explore. I've spent, I think, over 30 hours as of making this video playing the game, crafting, building, exploring, having fun, learning the mechanics so I could share. So I'm shocked at how big the area, how much stuff there is to do, and that you can play multiplayer with it. I highly recommend this game. I'm not familiar and I'm not in love with survival games, and this is the first one that I found it fun to chop down trees, mine ore, build up my camp, because it all ties into getting more powerful. Core RPG mechanics, builds, weapons, upgrading material, finding NPCs. It does have a worthwhile story that's kind of mysterious that you want to keep progressing. So if you're interested in Shrouded, check the link in the description below. It will support my channel. I appreciate them sponsoring this video, and check the links for Deltiasgaming.com, where I will be posting a ton of written guides for Enshrouded because I love this game and I appreciate you watching.